welcome everybody from whatever coast you're on, whether it be the East Coast or the West Coast. Welcome to the From Farms to Incubators guest speaker series today. We're really excited to have with us today Fatma Kaplan, the CEO and co-founder of Pheronym, Inc. Welcome, Fatma. The special guest speaker series is part of From Farms to Incubators' new menteeship program, a collaboration between us and the researchers and academics at the University of California, Merced's School of Engineering. So a little bit more about Fatma is that she is also a Activate Berkeley Fellow, Cyclotron Road, fellow. And the title of her talk today is Discoveries in the Lab Sustainable Solutions in the Field. I'm going to just share a little bit more about her, and then she can share more about herself. She's an entrepreneur, an accomplished scientist with experience in both biology and chemistry. She has a PhD in plant, molecular, and cellular biology and postdoctoral training at the natural product chemistry with a focus on isolating biologically active compounds. A little bit about the company briefly is that Pheronym is a California-based ag biotech company that uses pheromones to control plant parasitic nematodes and insect pests in the soil. A few more housekeeping things just for today is that today's talk will be in the format of a fireside chat of about 15, 20-ish minutes, followed by a really interactive Q&A. It is being recorded and will be available as part of the menteeship program. Please have your questions at the ready, but we really prefer you save them for after the fireside chat. Okay, so let us start. So Fatma, when we first connected about this special series, I asked you, what's the title of your talk? What would you like to talk about? And the title that you came back with was Discoveries in the Lab Sustainable Solutions in the Field. And how did you come up with that title? And I will also say that we also have slides. Fatma also has slides today. She may share them. So you're free to share them as well or not share them. But yeah, tell us a little bit about what inspired you, to come up with that title and a little bit more about that.
Finding titles are very difficult, but this one, after talking to you and what I would like to talk about, and I realized this is how Pheronym started. It was in the lab, and now it's turning into a sustainable solution. I discovered the C. elegans mating pheromone, and it was a basic research. Then USDA recruited me to turn this basic knowledge into a solution that can benefit farmers in controlling plant parasitic nematodes. And today, we are really close to bringing it to the market.
Excellent. I want to talk a little bit about career path because this is really exciting. We have mentees today, we have interns today, we have young people who are really passionate about learning more about ag tech. So what led you to a career path in agriculture? And I actually recall from our many conversations that you grew up among farms. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I grew up in our family farm. My grandparents had a farm, and I really enjoyed summers at the farm and the fresh fruits and the vegetables. So I'm really connected to the land, soil, and the farms. For me, it was very natural to go to a profession that is really related to agriculture.
Mm-hmm. And the farm, just a little bit more about that. It ran in the family, right? Are you originally from Turkey? Is that where the farm was? And what did you guys produce?
Yes, I am originally from Turkey. Now it's called Turkiye. And my grandparents used hazelnut farms, so they're hazelnut farmers. They grew other crops too, like corn and wheat, but that was not for sale. The cash crop, I would say, is the hazelnuts. Before that, they used to grow tobacco, and tobacco was so labor intensive that it was not profitable. It didn't really leave much of money. after it was harvested and sold. But the hazelnuts were a lot more profitable, so the land could take care of the family.
Okay, that's excellent. And you are in academic by training. You have a PhD as well, which it's quite in a climb, like a climb up Everest for the PhD in the academic world, isn't it? I mean, tell us a little bit about that. What were you originally thinking when you were getting your PhD, and how did you then shift into going from taking an academic path into becoming an entrepreneur?
So my plan was actually to be a faculty and do discoveries in lab in an academic setting, and then work with industry and bring these discoveries to life and provide sustainable solutions to the farmers. And initially, I was going to go back to Turkey, but things didn't really happen that way. Life had a different plan for me. So I stayed in the US. I applied for faculty positions, but it didn't really lead to anywhere. And I had collaborators who were really interested. They thought the nematode pheromones had a potential to create something sustainable. I believed in the same. So we wrote grants, and one of the grant we wrote got funding. But I didn't really know what an entrepreneur does. And so I did not intend to be an entrepreneur. So it was totally by chance. But I wanted my discoveries to make a difference in the world. And the best way to do that was to bring nematode pheromones to the market. And that is how the entrepreneurship provided to me. It wasn't the academic route, so it was entrepreneurship. For me, I'm still following the same path. It's just from a different angle.
Yeah, well, and in terms of the shift, industry, being a research scientist, what did you find were the greatest differences, or was there something within kind of your road toward research and being a research scientist that has helped you um, in being an entrepreneur as well?
It did. In academia, we have a structure and there are many services that we're provided. But at the same time, we're also taught how to learn really fast and create a plan, execute. So that was very useful for me. So in entrepreneurship, I can learn really fast because there are a lot of differences. There are similarities, but the differences. So I first focused on the similarities. So that would be a fast learning. And that allowed me to learn the new things along the way without taking too much time. And the things that helped me is my organizational skills and time management. But time management comes from my farming background. You have to be really organized to harvest something and to bring it to the market. It all depends on the season. If you're late, then you can't harvest. And if you can't harvest, no product. So the farming background and the academia together, I think, helped me to organize things, make plans, and execute plans. One really critical skill I brought from academia is writing manuscript and writing basic research grant, which I could transition to writing industry grants, which brought money because at the time when I decided to bring this technology to market, I didn't really know how to raise funds from investors. But I knew how to raise funds from federal resource for um, very early stage. So I was able to transition to industry grant writing. Then the second thing that really helped me is drafting a patent
Hmm.
with an IP lawyer. That goes back to writing manuscripts and the grants, so I could actually write it well and give my point. Third one was this one was a little learning, turning that academic writing into general audience writing. So I wrote blogs and general audience articles to create awareness for the product we are developing.
Hmm. Oh, those are really
That
excellent.
makes sense.
Yeah, those are excellent examples. I mean, I certainly hear that the writing experience was can could be transferred over to certainly the more general audience, right? As they become more interested in connecting, right, with the greater community
Yes.
out there. As I understand, you also were a member of some of the accelerators. We talk about Activate and all that. Can you talk a little bit about how important that was in helping on your journey as an entrepreneur? What did they provide for you? And maybe along with that, talk a little bit about Activate in Berkeley. I mean, I'm just excited to hear about what that's about. Yeah.
Uh, I was in Activate Berkeley program, which is a program designed to turn PhD scientists into entrepreneurs. They have a mentorship program because I remember the time when I started and I got into a University of Florida Innovation Hub, which had mentors to help um, new entrepreneurs how to develop a product concept and then trying to recruit mentors who could help you out. It's a new product, so nobody actually knows how to develop it. So it's brainstorming, it's a teamwork. Even your advisors don't really know. But having people around who can help you to turn this really deep science into a format that you can communicate with general audience, in this case, investors or the farmers, is really important. So I really benefited. And Activate, it also had a component to communicate science that is not really boring for others, or it's as exciting as to others. You know, science, I'm a scientist. I'm naturally excited about it. But it's important to excite others too, that it is going to make a difference. And business mentorship is really important. Actually, there was one example I can give when I got into Activate. I had this commercial company that was interested in our product, but we are still a technology. And I wanted to really work with them. I didn't want to lose them after our first meeting. So I went to one of our mentors and I said, here's a company. I think it will be a really good potential partner. I want to have a second meeting and I want to have them to test our prototype. What are the things that will turn them off? Or what are the things that they will say, I would like to have a second meeting with you and I would like to test your product. And then they explain to me how they see me, how they perceive my company and my technology, because it's standard how people see a new company. Then they guided me. Here are the things they're going to ask, and here are the things you should be able to answer confidently. That at the end of testing, the success would look like, okay, we can work with you, but we can also have a product. You know, it's not just testing our prototype. Yes, it is successful. Yes, we liked it. Now we are satisfied.
Hmm.
Then they need the product. And so that was really successful. And I'm still in touch with this company. And I use the same advice with a couple other companies. And uh, the next spring, to be able to test our prototype with commercial partners to bring it to the market. So other accelerators, it is the same. It's many of the things I didn't have in academia, the business and the investors and everything I had in my academic life. It's pretty much complementary in the accelerators and the Activate mentorship. But Activate is one of the best community. It is very inclusive. And they really try to recruit women entrepreneurs. It's one of the most friendly places.
Yeah, just on the heels of that, what I'm hearing is they really make it a point to recruit women entrepreneurs. And you and I have had many discussions about the gender aspect of it, right? Where are you seeing that
Yes.
now? I mean, after almost a decade of us maybe talking to each other, what's your crystal ball of where things are now?
I think no, maybe in some ways industry is a little bit more open-minded. At least they talk about it. And Activate is a good program that we actually got investment through them. If it hadn't been for them, I think we would have a lot harder time. You know, any of the any small bit helps because we are making an effort. We are using our strength to bring, fundraising, and they're also helping us out. And it may not be, if I had been a male founder, I would have raised funds a lot faster. But because of these programs, we didn't die. So we still made progress that we can get into the market next year.
That's really, I
So
mean,
one of the other things I learned from those programs, don't die. So don't quit.
I really love that. I mean, this actually connects directly with what I was going to talk about a little bit later is what are some of the challenges that you've had to overcome and and I would like you to share a little bit about that. What have been some of the major hurdles and how have you tackled them in your own way?
You know, the hurdles, I would say the major hurdle is money. Without money, you can't move the needle. And the with the money, I started with my strengths, where how can I raise money? In the meantime, I'm learning how to raise funds from investors. So that was one way to deal with it. And second, it's a startup. It's you're building everything, and every day something will go wrong. So I accepted hurdles will be happening every day, and it is okay. And take the day, maybe take every day, one day at a time, every hurdle one at a time. And sometimes when you're academic, you're perfectionist. There's a reason we're academic. It's almost like in our DNA. And then one of the other thing I learned in these, it was in the bio accelerator, and the managing director would say, Arvind Gupta, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good.
Hmm.
There were times and I have to get things done and I would like to have it, really nice. And I thought, okay, what is important? I need to be here and it is good enough. And if the good enough sometimes gets me where I need to be, it's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. So I am a little bit more relaxed on the perfectionist side. It depends. Some places I have to be perfect. Some places, if it is good enough, it is really good enough. Others are not looking for it.
That's very encouraging on all different levels and something rather inspirational, right? That can kind of transcend different situations. So I really do appreciate that, especially since folks who are interested in maybe starting up something, starting an initiative are often very scared about jumping in, right? And hoping that everything will be perfect before they even begin. So that's very useful. I just want to touch upon now or shift into the creation of your products, um, and jump in here. How would you say your products differentiate you from other ag bio um, companies? And maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
So we are developing a pheromone product. I was always fascinated by pheromones. When I was an undergraduate, I really liked the biological control because I grew up in a farm. So, and it always fascinated me. I would read about biocontrol in my spare times and how they're applied. And I was fascinated by insect pheromones and how effectively they were used. It was species specific and it didn't harm non-target organisms and it worked beautifully. Then the opportunity came for my postdoc as identifying nematode pheromones, and I thought I can actually use this concept if I identify the structure, then apply it to control nematodes, specifically plant parasitic nematodes. So the pheromones we have is water soluble, and we can dry them and store them as dry powder, and we can control nematodes, and we target the pest below ground. So the major difference would be is the other pheromone companies' product target the above ground insect pest, and we target below ground pest. With the nematode pheromones, which is really great, is there are good nematodes and the bad nematodes, kind of like our good gut microbiome. that is really good for us. And the bad guys, the bad microbes makes us sick. So same thing with the nematodes. The good nematodes are natural enemies for insect pests. So we make them with the pheromones, we make them better by pesticides. So their efficacy is a lot higher. With the bad nematodes, we can communicate with them that they wouldn't infect the insects, or we would deter them to move away from colonizing the good, healthy plants. So that would be, am I clear on the differentiation?
Yeah, what I heard was that the products focus on the negative insects and pests underneath the ground, correct? You focus on under the ground, is that correct? Versus over
Yes.
the beneficial.
Yes.
Right. And why did you decide to do that? I'm just curious. Is there more underground?
Uh, you know, when the pests are, it's out of sight, out of mind. Many people are not aware of the pest underground because we don't see them.
Mm.
When an insect eats your beautiful flower and you see it, it's like, oh, that's a problem. But the below ground insects actually cause just as much damage to our yield. And people just don't see them. And the farmers actually recognize that's a big problem. It initially started out actually with plant parasitic nematodes when I was undergraduate student. And in one of the classes, I learned that the nematodes that came from United States nearly wiped out the whole vineyards and wine industry and the whole grape industry, table grapes. And then they had a rootstock to save the industry. So they can be really damaging when you have. So in my case, I had this basic research and I had desire to bring it to the market, and I thought it would be just as it would work just as good as insect pheromones.
Oh, it's wonderful. I am soon going to shift it over to the floor, but I also want to bring up the AI aspect as there because everybody's talking about AI, right? So,
Oh, yes.
does AI play a role in your products or your innovation? And if so, has it played a greater role than it has before?
Actually, at the conference today, there was a huge section for AI. And AI will play a major role in agriculture, and it is already playing a role. Currently, we are using AI to automate our bioassays, which will be used for quality control for our products. And we can also see many areas we can use AI to speed up our R&D activities and make Pheronym competitive today and in the future.
Hmm. Um, I think I'm going to open up the conversation and to the floor. I know that there are a lot of questions out there, so please, a reminder to unmute yourself and introduce yourself. You can say where you're based now, who you are, and then ask the question, or you can also feel free to put it in the chat as well.
Hi Fatma, I'm Savio. I'm one of the mentees for From Farms to Incubators. And my question to you is, how did you find it going, I guess, co-founding your own research lab? Like a lot of, like you said, you went on the path to from academia and you wanted to go into the faculty positions. And a lot of faculty positions here at UC Merced uh, are kind of integrated with their own research labs. So how does it differ between a school research lab versus like your own personal research lab?
It's not really my own personal research lab, but I think having an academic setting, knowing what a lab looks like, is really important. So that would be a transferable knowledge, I would say, because we do a lot of laboratory work. And that's in some ways, I use my academic training. It's the critical thinking, how to design, plan, and how to evaluate your results, analyze your results, and based on that result, we can communicate to our collaborators. So one of the great thing of the universities, as a professor, you don't have to think about the cost of your lab or the utilities. In my case, I have to think about how much I pay, and I have to think about electricity, water, beside the science. So it can be really overwhelming, and it can be really expensive. And building a lab, you probably have seen a lot of fancy labs. And biotech, it requires, good laboratory conditions. For that, I actually look for incubators, wet lab incubators instead of spending my time on how to build the lab. And I thought to go faster, my focus should be on how should I do milestones to show that this technology can work or proof of concept. So I looked for incubators with a wet lab space that's already laboratory is already there. You can just open up the door, go into the lab and work. So that way, those labs already include their electricity, water, internet, and many of the intangibles you can think of, it's bundled in. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so what I heard is there's a lot of, I guess, transferable skills from academia to more industry focused research and a lot within the lab as well regarding equipment. But more so, I guess on the industry side, it's kind of more personalized, no? Like you get to have the equipment you want and then you decide how where the funds are allocated and everything.
Yes and no. Actually, it's not really about me who wants to have the equipment. In this case, we are looking at the product development. What does the product needs? And what kind of equipment we need, what kind of experiments we need to do to show the proof of concept. When the initial one, we wrote an NSF SBIR phase 1. So we carefully taught, and it can't be just random experiments. It goes back to the interview with the potential customers, what kind of questions they asked, because those are the quantifiable things that we can actually go to them later on. Here are the questions you ask as part of the product development. Then, based on those experiments, we can design 10 different experiments, which will be more expensive, or can we actually do 2 or 3 experiments that could answer everyone's question? So that's the thinking part, and we'll go to minimum amount of questions and experiment with the maximum amount of data and answers we can get. So based on that, once we design those experiments to show the proof of concept, what kind of equipment we need, what kind of space we need, because they're all money and time.
Okay,
Does
cool.
that
Thank you.
help?
Yeah, thank you so much.
My name is Laurel, and I'm one of the mentees working with From Farms to Incubators. And my question for you is, knowing your academic and entrepreneur side training, I was wondering who has been your most influential mentor, even through your mentorship program, or perhaps it was someone through school, and what advice they gave you.
I would say I have a lot of mentors. And when you're new, you grab onto everyone. And I had many, many great people. But one of the person I would say influential is actually Dr. Pam Marone. She's a serial entrepreneur and she's a leader in biologicals. And having a woman entrepreneur successful, and you can say, yes, it is hard, but it is possible that I can, we are not the same and we target different things, but it is an encouragement. And seeing other women founders and also having positive people around. You have to know what encourages you. And sometimes, depending on the startup stage, you need different advisors. And because you need different skill sets and different people provide different resources. So you'll have, and in my case, I have a lot of advisors. Some are formal on my website, but I lot of informal, way more informal advisors. In any of the programs, I probably got at least 3 to 5 advisors I can reach out to.
A good question about mentorship,
Did it
certainly.
answer your question?
Yes, that was very nice to hear. Thank you.
I'm gonna jump in with another question when it comes to mentors, and then, like I said, please continue with the questions. If you want to raise your hand or put it in the chat box, both are fine as well. Career prospects in ag bio, or let's talk about your company. Are you hiring now, or have you hired recently? Do you have an internship program, and what sort of skills do you seek, Fatma, when you hire?
We actually have 2 open positions. We are going to be hiring information scientist, and another one is laboratory scientist. It's going to be PhD level. We also have internship, and we had funding from NSF for 2 REU students. One of them we recruited, and we are training her. The second one we are currently recruiting. And we will be having another 2 next year, next summer. So we're definitely recruiting undergraduate students. And enthusiasm is really important, and somebody who would like to learn and enjoy. And for the undergraduates, we look at different things, enthusiasm and reliability and learning. And they have to like the topic, because when they like the topic, they will learn a little easier. There should be some alignment to their future goals. We ask them, and how they could utilize. If we know where they want to go with their career, we can relate to their career. Here are the things you're learning, and here is how you can relate it. I have one undergraduate student who was in food science. She wanted to go to food technology company, and she did get a position. She was hired on the spot. And even though we're totally on the different aspects of agriculture, but she was interested and she learned really fast. And when she learned critical thinking skills, she was organized. We taught her how to manage projects and many of the transferable skills that wherever she could go, she could. She was interested in fermentation. We are using biomanufacturing and fermentation for our to produce our product. And she wanted to learn how to use fermentation for food science, even though it was not a food fermentation, but there was the component of fermentation and how to use a bioreactor. That was a common element. She was excited. So for the PhD scientist, I think the person should be initiative and like science and learning to science, and does not mind getting into the lab and learning, and should have a skill to train new people, because in a startup we don't really have technicians, so they have to teach and train their own student or technician. We don't really have protocols. It's a novel product, so no protocols, and we are the ones who are creating protocols. So the person has to be really brave and taking on new challenges every day and should be able to enjoy it too.
That's really wonderful. And I also know that you speak, correct, at a lot of different colleges and universities. Have you done that as well? Maybe you can talk about where you've done that and why do you do that? I mean, you're a very busy person. There's conferences, there's raising money. Why do you do that?
Oh, the conferences. It depends. Actually, one of them I do. It's I do for the career-related ones, and at conferences, it's usually women in career and the challenges. And people said it's as part of being a role model. And I would like to encourage students, and particularly women and minority. There are still few. And for example, in Activate, despite their efforts trying to recruit women entrepreneurs, still it's 20%, maximum 30%. And of the entrepreneurs, that's still low, very low. any given place in ag, if you go there, it's only 10%, sometimes 10%, sometimes 20% of the population or the professionals are, it should be 50, in some cases should be 100. And despite all the encouragement, our 21st century, we have very small number of women in every profession, particularly in agriculture. That I see it as my outreach duty, that if I could inspire someone, and particularly women, and if I could help them, and many of the things I utilize, they might be able to utilize it too. So bringing the net out there, and if I could do it, they could do it too. Because I was able to do this. I came from another country to a new country where I didn't really know the culture. I didn't know the language. Actually, when I came to US, I had 8 months of English course. It was after college. And I landed to New York with 18 fellow. And internet wasn't like this at that time. We didn't really have access to internet. So this is the first time I'm coming to an English-speaking country. In New York, we have learned that everybody caught one word, that our plane was canceled after 12 hours of plane ride. I was jet lagged. So if I could do it today, and if I can speak fluently, and if I could have an education after that, a graduate school, and then write grants, write papers, then they can do it too.
I really like that. Thank you for sharing your story, Fatma. It's like very inspirational. I want to open it up to the floor again for other questions.
I can ask another question. Yeah. So, Fatma, you mentioned AI being really big within agriculture, and we've spoken with a few people who are currently using AI, whether it be in gene editing or in robotics. Where do you think, I guess, the future of AI is, or even just general computing in agriculture as a whole, or even in your sector of agriculture? Where do you think it'll go, and how do you think it'll lean within the next decade or so?
Can you repeat the question? It broke enough times. The screen froze and I couldn't really hear it
There
pop
is
up.
some pause in the IT today. Savi, if you don't mention.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I guess you mentioned how AI is getting really big within agriculture. So I just wanted to know what your outlook is on AI in the field of agriculture, maybe whether it's in your sector or whether it's in other sectors like robotics or gene editing within like the next decade or two.
I think AI is going to be a critical part of the industry in every aspect. It has been actually, it's just a different name. It's a machine learning. It came to our life actually in many different forms. It could be in, bioinformatics, machine learning. It's an algorithm and it's a predictive algorithm. So it has been in our lives, but this time it's artificial intelligence, but it is a model, statistical model that predicts. Prediction is important, particularly for large data sets, and ag has a lot of them. And it's going to be important for climate, how things are going to change, and anticipate the changes. And the discoveries, it is already actually, there are many companies for discovering new products, agricultural products using AI. It's already, I would say, a couple of these companies probably will make it to the reality in the next 10 years. They're well funded.
Thank you. That's that's very good. Fatma, I want to loop back again to the previous question about women, right, in the field. 10%, sometimes 20%. So what do you think needs to happen to get more women literally in the field?
I think the education system is good. You can see 50-50. When I was in graduate school, it was, I would say 50-50 probably. What I realized, at least my experience, is there's a lot of pushing women out, or they need to be provided the opportunities. It's not just the education. We're having an education and we would like to have the career trajectory as opposed to women is said, oh, it's a leaky pipe and women have kids and leaving. I really don't believe that. I have kids and I didn't leave, but I felt like I was really pushed out. But people don't offer you the jobs. In my case, I was very persistent and I said, well, I want to accomplish this, and what other ways I can accomplish. I didn't really just think about it as, oh, it's a job I have to get versus I want to accomplish this. And I also had a very supportive husband. Not everyone has a supportive family. And I have a mother who was very supportive and encouraging. So it's not just the person themselves. You might have enough courage, but you also have a family that also encourages you and supports you. We need a career. You can't just have the education for the sake of education. You're investing time for 4 to 6 years for a PhD for a low wage. And you're not investing it just to drop at the end. And they should be given opportunities to utilize that knowledge. And
The screen
they
seems
wouldn't leave.
okay. There seems to be a little bit of a lag, at least on this end. I'm not sure if anybody's noticing with that, but what I'm hearing, Fatma, is that family or support beyond just the education or one's experience is really, really important. And what I did hear is that your husband is very supportive, and maybe even mentioned the two of you work very closely together, right? How have you guys managed to build it together, and what is
Yes.
the company?
We have very complementary skill. He has an economics background, so he focuses on the back office, accounting, and businesses require a lot of things, even though it's a science startup. But science is not the only thing. And we have NDAs, we have to communicate with the IP lawyer, we have to reach out to people, rent the facility, and the insurance. Many of the things, when you work in a really care or you're not aware, those things have to be done to be able to get the science going. Science is maybe 1/3 of it. So you have 2/3 that without it, you can't really go anywhere, particularly accounting. So financials and how to look at it, even just for the grants, I have a section for the budget that he does the grant support. At the universities, it's the sponsored research office, so he does the sponsored research office work. And some people hire grant writers, but certain section I do it, certain section he does. It's a lot more complementary. So we do different work.
Thank you very much for sharing that. So I think we're closing in on time. We have like a couple more minutes. And I found really the discussion conversation very rich. I think we've covered like a wide range, everything from your career journey to the innovation itself to sort of also the challenges, right? And the opportunities of being an entrepreneur in the startup space in ag bio as well, and also your insight on artificial intelligence. So I want some maybe parting words from you, Fatma, a little bit. Do you want to share a little bit about your overall outlook for ag tech, as we move forward in the next at least the next couple of years, and also within that, what are some opportunities that you see for young people who are exploring this as a career, but they themselves don't come from an agricultural background?
I think agriculture is going to have a lot of advances in every direction. I would say the tech part is really important, and there are a lot of advances on that side. Biotech is also important because you can't just fix everything with coding. So non-coding actual work, the physical work. So the codes are not going to make the food. It can make our life easier, and it can make it efficient. Hours have to be in the market to help farmers out to produce the yield. And for the new generation, if you don't have an ag background, and if you're curious, you should try it, because I didn't know what a PhD did. It was something I tried and I learned. And if I had been asked whether I would do it, despite I went through, I probably would do PhD again, because it teaches you things that no other profession can do. The critical thinking and the way you look at life is very different. How you're evaluating things. And same thing with ag and entrepreneurship. You have to try it. You might really like it. If you don't like it, it doesn't have to be your permanent job. You can always have a different profession. And if you don't try, you'll never know whether you're going to like it. To me, agriculture is exciting. I like agriculture. I like outdoors.
I really like that a lot. We're gonna end here, but I see another question. Maybe we have one more minute for this question. I said, do you ever find other discoveries while researching I think that's biopesticides?
Let me see. While we're doing
Yeah, that's
the
biopesticides. That was my question. I was just wondering, I know you do research and you have objectives and targets while you're doing research, but I was just wondering if by accident you ever come across something else that's very interesting, and is that good or is that bad? Because it might, take you off your, your target.
Well, in this case, we're really focused on getting our product to the market.
Mm-hmm.
And while we're doing that, yes, something else might have come up interesting. And
Mm-hmm.
it actually did. In one case, when we were doing soil testing, one of the questions I get from the investors, the companies, and the grant funding or the funding sources, what are the intended consequences of the pheromones to the soil or the nematodes, because our first product comes into market with beneficial nematodes. For beneficial nematodes, I always have an answer because it's in the market, environmental studies are done, and it is not toxic to the environment. But I thought maybe I should actually do an experiment. I talked to my business mentor, Dr. Pam Marone, and she introduced me to biomakers so they could actually analyze soil biologicals. Pheromones are such a small amount. I didn't really think it would have much of anything in the soil. But we did the experiment and we compared it to industry standard chemical pesticide. And I talked to our USDA collaborators, so they sampled it, they conducted the field trials. And it turns out that the pheromones, even that small amount, actually improve soil biodiversity and some of the soil biologicals.
Mm-hmm.
So some of them were really interesting, and it felt like, oh, maybe we should also pursue that one too. But in the meantime, what I did was I did draft a patent application that this could be pursued. Right now, we don't have money. If we don't have money, we're not be able to accomplish anything. So the priority is still continue with our product development, but securing IP in the meantime was a very good idea that we can actually pursue in the future, or we could present it as an added benefit.
Okay, so you
Currently,
just
we're
table it temporarily.
yes, but making
Mhm.
sure that we secure the IP. We
Right.
don't just if it's not important, how much priority and how important is it at that time, at least we thought the market, it would be as a biofertilizer or biostimulant, but that particular market is really crowded. And the way we are bringing our product to the market is a lot more competitive. But without securing IP, we can't really pursue. So we secure the IP that we can pursue in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent question. Well, thank you, Fatma, very much. I know you joined us from a conference today, right? Very busy day. And we had some really good questions and discussion today. And I will say that really appreciate everybody's participation in the guest speaker series. If there's nothing else, then we're going to say probably good afternoon or good evening or good night, or maybe for some of you, I don't know, good morning. We are not sure where everybody is joining us from. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed the conversation and the really great questions. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Fatma.
Thank you.
Thank you.